was contacted by an ex-Obsidian employee that wanted to speak out about the environment over at Obsidian after all this information started coming out surrounding Matt Hansen. And the person that reached out to me said that they trusted me to get this information out to you guys, to let you know what's transpiring behind the scenes, because this kind of stuff needs to get out there. It needs to be aired out so that we can start taking steps to improve the game industry. And we can't do that without the information of what's happening right now being out there, specifically surrounding, like I said, Matt Hansen, and how this whistleblower is calling him pure evil. What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of Smash JT. And Matt Hansen is not just a very poor tweeter or blue sky guy and weirdo behind the scenes, but also an awful boss, somebody that is holding people down at the company, blaming all their shortcomings on them, and making everybody there feel horrible about themselves if they dare disagree with the message. And this keeps going back to the same thing we've discovered at other studios, going to BioWare, Firewalk Studios, and now Obsidian. The same pattern keeps showing up here. And you gotta ask yourself at some point, why does this keep happening? Hit that subscribe, give me a like, and check out smashjt.com for the full and very exhaustive article going through this whistleblower completely exposing Obsidian Entertainment behind the scenes, and when Microsoft took over, how it completely ruined the entire dynamic of the studio. A whistleblower from Obsidian Entertainment has come forward with some seriously wild information about the studio's internal culture under Microsoft's ownership, and more specifically, how Matt Hansen grew to power over there. The following insights I'm going to go over in this video have painted quite the grim picture of a once thriving creative environment that's unfortunately devolved into a corporate-driven leftist echo chamber where agendas and ideologies now far outweigh any kind of actual passion for game development. This former employee, who we'll just call Doe for the anonymity purposes of this video, describes the workplace completely overrun by external influences, misguided priorities, and a toxic atmosphere that ultimately drove him out. It takes a very brave person to come forward as a whistleblower over an organization they used to be at, especially in the video game industry that seems to go out of its way to blackball anybody that dares try to call out any wrongdoing. And Joel said to me specifically, I know how spiteful of a person Matt unfortunately is, and I know he and probably others will try to witch hunt me just to try and make my life hell because they aren't getting their way. So huge shout out for coming forward, and I'm going to do my best in this video to protect the anonymity of this person, but also getting the information out there. The center of this catastrophe, none other than Matt Hansen, the art director at Obsidian Entertainment. Some of the stuff that this whistleblower called out blew my mind. And just to give you guys full background on the whistleblower reaching out to me, they saw my initial video expose calling out this Matt Hansen character, and they decided to reach out to me via email. They said that they're a big fan of my video exposés of Firewalk Studios and BioWare, and from that they felt very confident that I was a person that they could divulge information to in order to get it out there for everyone. And doing this is the first step to fixing the problems that are plaguing the entire AAA game industry. We set up a video call, and from that we spoke for about 2.5 hours. And in addition, I've verified their previous employment history and am extremely confident in what they told me is 100% the real deal. And now on with the actual information. The shift in workplace dynamics began after Microsoft acquired Obsidian in November of 2018 and made them a part of Xbox Studios back then. They implemented some very strange corporate policies. According to Doe, things weren't normal anymore, beginning with an email to the entire company about how Microsoft is now instituting the introduction of optional but in reality mandatory pronouns in email signatures, meetings, and other various communications around the office. And while initially framed as optional, it became quickly clear that dissent was not welcome. Doe decided that they didn't want to add pronouns to their communications because they thought it was just weird. But they went along with the idea that others were free to do so in a very live and let live mantra that was initially at least harmless at the time. Doe knew that deep down, not including pronouns wasn't a good look from the jump, but declined them anyways because it was just so strange to them. And of course, the harmless pronoun situation turned very serious shortly after the initial email came through. There was a misgendering incident, as Doe put it, and Matt Hansen sent a company-wide email declaring a zero tolerance for intentional or malicious misgendering. The email's tone was described to me as passive-aggressive, yet fairly threatening. It was a warning to employees who couldn't align with the policies and how they would be facing termination if they decided to go against this innocent thing called pronouns. So here you see, having a harmless idea of instituting pronouns turning out to be quite harmful in the grand scheme. Who would have thought? In all seriousness, Doe described what I would agree as using pronouns as a way of controlling others, using them as a way to shift power balance and structures of entire organizations. It's not about, oh, I want to feel comfortable in my own skin, so address me as he and she or whatever the hell you want to be called. No, it's about demanding that someone addresses you the way you want to be addressed, and that way you are exhibiting control over that other person, making them submit to you. And it's stuff like this where I'm like, is this what we're really doing in the office? For Doe, this was a turning point. They observed that Obsidian's culture seemingly increasingly unwelcomed anyone who didn't fit a specific mold, with demographics at the company becoming noticeably homogenous in one specific direction. He also found Matt Hansen extremely difficult to work with, citing an unwillingness to accept constructive criticism and a consistent tendency to make assumptions about low-level employees' commitments. And Doe went on to tell me that at the time when they were there, it was about 220 employees at Obsidian, and this was a few years ago. There were only a handful of straight white males. As they put it, I could count them all on one hand. The studio itself was extremely gay and LGBTQ friendly. And while on the surface you hear that and be like, who cares? Like, whatever, you do you. I don't care what you do at night when you close your bedroom door or what you even identify. I don't care about any of this as long as we're collaborative and putting the game together and not having any issues. Whatever, not a problem. But then when you see what transpires once you start going down this direction and admitting only a certain descriptive type person at your company, it becomes very cult-like. The ideology began to morph and push and adhere to a certain expected viewpoint. And if you do not ideologically align with these people, you are instantly an outcast, creating an even deeper echo chamber of like-minded thought. It was at this time that Doe began quietly updating their resume, realizing that the workplace they initially signed up for had now instead become intensely hostile to anyone who didn't conform. In regards to the pronouns, Doe told me, quote unquote, I didn't touch that with a 20-foot pole. And when they said this, they knew deep down that any pushback would put them on the radar as the next person to go out that door. Despite staying at Obsidian for another few years, the toxicity only grew during that time. Doe eventually parted ways with the company, but I can only leave it at that. And while I'd love to go into a lot more detail on this specific area here, I can't really because it's going to start pointing out exactly who this person was. So I'm going to leave it very surface level, but suffice it to say that the things Doe told me are directly in line with exactly the same problems at Firewalk Studios and BioWare. To Doe, the struggles with Obsidian represented far more than workplace conflicts. They were a battleground in a much larger spiritual war between good and evil. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but hang with me here, because after I was explained this information, I was actually on board with it as well because it made sense. Doe began the conversation recalling about how a pivotal moment 2 years after the COVID pandemic began, where the company held a meeting to discuss returning to office. And the reaction from the employees was nothing short of completely unhinged, where employees of all levels were melting down on this Microsoft Teams call in front of the higher-ups on video, screaming, screeching, and yelling at management, upper management, and the CEO for daring to have them come back to work. They made some insane demands while also berating the CEO, Fergus Urquhart, as if they controlled the company instead of him. The leadership was so taken aback by the collective massive outrage of the employees that they walked back their plans of framing the return to office initiative as an attempt to improve efficiency and product quality and allowed people to work from home for much longer. And the leader of the charge, the brigade to fight back, was one Matt Hansen. Matt Hansen, the art director for 9 years now at Obsidian, emerged as a vocal advocate for continued remote work, citing various mental health concerns for employees that worked under him. And at the time, many of these employees were still clinging to the outdated CDC guidance, convincing them that returning to office would be life-threatening. Doe was struck by the quasi-religious fervor of these particular individuals, and they specifically stated that these are the type of people that would wear 5 or 6 masks at once if they could. The same type of people that would advocate for traveling around in society in a literal bubble for protection if they could find a way to make that socially acceptable. Doe went on to talk about how they believed the intersection of extreme COVID caution and their LGBTQ Marxist alignments over at Obsidian had now morphed into some sort of New Age religion. Doe felt that these people needed a real religion to embrace, because without it, we're seeing exactly what happens. They become lost souls clinging to identity politics as their god. And I'm not one to push religion on people, but when you start pushing political ideologies as your god, I'd say take a big step back and reevaluate your life choices. Doe's experience at Obsidian highlights a much larger issue plaguing the entire AAA gaming industry: the decline of any authentic and true passion behind making the games among developers. Doe felt that many employees at Obsidian and other AAA studios aren't there anymore to create great games for gamers, but instead to push agendas from the top down to further promote their ideologies. Gaming's mainstream popularity and massive cultural reach have attracted outside influences like Bridge, BlackRock and Vanguard, and Sweet Baby Inc. type companies whose primary focus is financial gain rather than great game experiences and overall qualities. The things that this person was telling me behind the scenes echoed everything that I've been saying about the game industry. It's kind of reassuring, but at the same time concerning that what I've been saying is exactly on point with what's happening and transpiring behind the scenes at AAA companies right now, and we need to keep bringing it to light in order to make the changes. But getting back to Matt Hansen, they stated that the corporate chokehold was stifling creativity and stripped games of value for the players. Leaders at Obsidian like Matt Hansen continue to be empowered to go on unhinged rants on Blue Sky, being extremely racist, attacking gamers, and being protected by the very echo chambers of positive feedback that have been created over the years at companies like Obsidian. Hansen has grown even more emboldened over the years to attack the very gamers that were there to support his product in the first place. Now, specific stories regarding what Doe told me and how he was treated by Hansen over the years that he was there were very specific, and unfortunately, for anonymity purposes, I can't really talk about them because it would give away exactly who it was that we're dealing with here. But suffice it to say, and trust me on this when I tell you, Matt Hansen is an evil person. He is a bad human being. He is someone that I would not want to be caught working with, because I don't want an environment that involves someone that does the things that I have been told that he did during the tenure of while Doe was there. And this is exactly the reason why game companies continue to fail, because they're propping up people like Matt Hansen who should not even be in these positions in the first place. This kind of positive feedback loop that Hansen has been embroiled in is beginning to collapse. We're seeing it live, right now, firsthand. Studios like Obsidian are facing a rude awakening as reality sets in. Players are rejecting subpar products, and the disconnect between developers and their audience is becoming impossible to ignore. You can imagine Microsoft has to step in to change gears here if they have any care about the future success of their products. But according to Doe, Microsoft doesn't care. And that's precisely why people like Hansen have remained in power and grown over the years at their respective companies. Whistleblower also wanted me to focus on telling you guys that it's not all bad at Obsidian. It's just a part of the corporation and the corporate culture after Microsoft took over. Doe shared with me that amidst all the awfulness from people like Matt Hansen, that there were still really good, wonderful, talented people employed at Obsidian. They're really kind and collaborative and genuinely helpful people. Specifically, he stated, I learned a lot from several people there and have a lot of respect for them and their craft. I think the distinction is really important to make because many of these people are good at heart and well-intentioned and just want to make cool stuff. Many of those who have fallen unknowingly to this indoctrination can't really see it for what it is, and the road to hell is paved with good intentions. So let this be a warning to every AAA company out there. Do not end up like this. Do not hire a certain type of person that echoes exactly what every single person in your company already is. Open your minds. Don't just bring them in because they fit in exactly what other people want at the company. Bring new ideas to the table. Allow them to flourish. And most importantly, don't attack the very customers that are trying to support your game in the first place. I could only imagine being another employee at Obsidian right now and seeing someone like Matt Hansen go on these unhinged rants on social media attacking the customers on the game that I worked over for the past 5 to 8 years on, seeing completely destroyed right in front of me because this guy has Trump derangement syndrome or Elon derangement syndrome or just wants to get back at the chuds. It's like, that shouldn't be the reason why you're making games. You should be making games because they're amazing experiences, not to get back at people. Another quote from the whistleblower that I wanted to bring to you guys specifically states, my goal with helping bring all this to light is I want to help spread awareness of what is actually the problem in our industry and where it's coming from and why. I do not want to see my friends and peers fail. I do not want to see Obsidian and Microsoft fail. I would love to see healthy competition again in our industry where developers are unshackled by bad management and leadership, shareholders and investors' personal interests. Making a good game comes first. If you can convey a message through a seamless and fun experience, then even better. Let the creative endeavor happen naturally. It can't be forced. I'm a firm believer in the free market of ideas and meritocracy, and whatever the best idea for the game and what the player base wants, that's what should be implemented. And he continues stating, while I want to see success for everyone, I think it's important that it is earned. Honesty and accountability is paramount. For those that don't earn it, I hope you learn from your earned failures. Success is built on learning from our past failures. Success can be a blessing. But remember to stay humble and check your egos at the door when you clock in. We're here because our players support us to do so. We're here to make a fun experience and provide escapism for them. Maybe even inspire some of our fellow gamers to take up the mantle like we have from those who inspired us to join the creative endeavors of game development. We're here for the journey and the process, not the destination. Developers win when their players win. And honestly, deep down, after having a 2.5 hour plus long conversation with this Doe character, I can tell that deep down, they truly are a passionate, real gamer. I'm going to leave it there. Huge shout out to this whistleblower for coming forward and giving me this information. Because holy crap, it really exposes everything going on behind the scenes at Obsidian right now. And it does make the first step to change, hearing this kind of stuff and knowing, okay, now that it's out there, there's now accountability being put on these companies and pressure saying, hey, we're not going to stand for this. We want equal opportunity to be equal, not raising up voices just because you're a certain skin color or gender or something really dumb that has nothing to do with making the game creative in the first place. Shouldn't really be that hard, but then again, here we are. If you guys appreciate what I'm doing, hit that join button. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, you stay smashing.
A new thing that Justin is trying out, it's called Louisiana Quiet Time, which is this idea that I guess an elf will be angry at you.
We've got 25 minutes.
Right. So with the idea that so much can be going on every day, like in so many people, and we have 50, 60 people working on a project or even more, like everybody's, I mean, it's good that everybody's talking, but sometimes you just need to like stop and focus.
Sometimes
and
you don't need your gamer to come around and
yes.
point at things and talk loudly.
Yeah.
Smash, change,